Hello and welcome back to Clarkenomics. In this video, I'm going to talk about a topic that is almost definitely not on your mind anytime soon, but it's still important nonetheless. We're going to talk about retirement. So I know you're thinking to yourself like, okay, well, I haven't even started working yet. Why are you talking about when I'm going to stop working? Because of some of the challenges that lie in front of us, it's important to start thinking about this as early as possible. From a saving standpoint, if you remember the miracle of compounding, the longer money is saved for, the more it's exposed to earning interest, the greater the effect of compounding becomes. It's literally an exponential effect that time has on compounding. So you want to start saving as soon as you can, or at least have a plan to start saving as soon as you can. So where do people get the money that they need to live once they stop working? Well, some people use a savings account. The advantage of a savings account is it's safe. It's not going to lose value, but it's barely going to earn any interest at all. So it's not a great place to save your money for retirement, unless you're super scared about, you know, losing all your money everywhere else. But if you're doing things right, a savings account should not be the primary place where you're saving your money. Next, Social Security, which you might have heard of. So, Social Security, just to keep it very simple here, is a government fund set up to give income to retirees. So the government will actually give you money just for living and being retired to help you get by. So where do they get this money? Well, they're getting it right now from workers. So when you work at a job, they take money, the government takes money from your paycheck essentially and puts it into the Social Security fund. So today's workers are putting money into the system and today's retirees are getting money out of it. So I'm a good example of that. I'm a teacher, I'm working, my money goes to the Social Security fund. My grandmother, who is 83, is retired, and so she gets money from the Social Security fund. So that's how that works. Next, pensions. Pensions are kind of like Social Security, only instead of the government putting money into a fund, it's your employer that puts money into a fund. And you get regular payments from it when you retire. It's something companies offer to their employees as a perk, essentially. It's called deferred compensation. They will give you money just later. It's deferred later. And then finally, life insurance. Long story short, the way life insurance works is you have an insurance policy, and if the policy owner dies, essentially, or the person who is covered by the insurance policy, which may be the policy owner or maybe somebody else, but if that person dies, then a person called the beneficiary gets money. So essentially, if I have a life insurance policy and I were to die, then my wife, who is my beneficiary, would get a payment, a pretty large payment, to cover the lost income that I will no longer be making because sadly I am dead. So those are some common places where people can get money for retirement. Social Security is not going to be necessarily in very good shape once you guys get to retirement age, so I would not count on that. Pensions, very few employers these days offer pensions anymore. Mostly government jobs like teachers get pensions. Most people do, the vast majority of people do not get pensions. And life insurance only gives you money if you buy a life insurance policy. And if you buy a life insurance policy, you have to pay what are called premiums to keep that policy going. So some people have life insurance, some people do not. So, the only one of these that's kind of a guarantee is Social Security, and that's not a great guarantee at this point. You probably won't get enough to live on just from Social Security. So when it comes to saving for retirement, the reason I'm telling you this is because no one's really going to do it for you. It's up to you to really take care of your retirement. And the most common way that people do this today is by setting up what's called a retirement account. A retirement account is like a savings account, but with some special features that make it more attractive to put your money in specifically to save for retirement. So you choose to put money into this special retirement account. When you put money in, that's called a contribution. You are contributing to your retirement account. Now, they don't let you put as much as you want in. Like with a savings account, you can put as much money into your savings account as you want to. But with a retirement account, there are annual limits on how much you can put in to your retirement account. And we'll get to the reason why later on down the road. Now, once this money is in your retirement account, you can use that money to buy securities. So if you remember from the previous video called securities, that might include things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds. There's tons of other types of securities that you can buy and sell. And so you can buy and sell within this retirement account of yours. You can't take any money out of that account and just like go buy stuff, like, go to the mall and buy clothes with it. But you can buy and sell securities, and the money is all existing, contained within this retirement account. Now, that account has a value, right? It's all the cash that's in there, or all the securities, the value of the stocks, the bonds. Hopefully, what's going to happen is during your working years, the value of your account is going to keep increasing over time, right? You might be earning capital gains from stocks. Those stocks might be paying you some dividends. You might be earning interest payments on bonds or things like that. That's going to hopefully make the number in your retirement account get bigger and bigger and bigger over your working years. But remember, during those working years, you can't just be taking money out to go buy stuff for fun, right? That money is in that retirement account for a reason. It's supposed to stay there. Now, once you retire or once you hit a certain age, this is all very complicated. I'm just going over this very simply. You can take what are called disbursements from the account, meaning money is dispersed from your retirement account to you. So once you retire, you can take money out of your retirement account and you can use that money to live on. That's called a disbursement, when you take money out of your retirement account once you've retired. Now, the reason why it's better to use a retirement account than just like a straight up savings account is that most retirement accounts are tax advantaged. What that means is, in some way, shape, or form, you'll pay less in taxes if you use a retirement account than you would have to pay if you were using just like a standard savings account or a checking account or something like that. So the government has created rules which make retirement accounts attractive to put your money into. So, the first category of these retirement accounts are what I'm going to call work-related. You've probably heard of this one, a 401k. There's different types of 401ks, but I'm going to go with a traditional 401k. This is a retirement account that goes through your job, that goes through your employer. And the way this works, just kind of like we said, is you make contributions to the account during your working years. So your employer, you tell them, hey, take this much money out of my paycheck and put it into my 401k. Those dollars are not getting taxed. So you don't owe any tax money on the pay that you're getting that you put into your 401k at the time. So what I'm trying to say is you don't pay taxes on that income during the year you put it into your 401k. So if I put 20 grand into my 401k in 2019, I'm not paying taxes on that 20 grand in 2019. So that's how that works. Now, this gets even better. Sometimes your employer will partially match your contribution. So if I put money into my 401k, my employer will also put some money into my 401k too, money of my employer, like my job's money. So that's another perk there. Now, the downside is, you're putting money that's tax-free into your 401k. When you take disbursements during your retirement years, that's when you have to pay taxes on it. So you're not paying taxes when you put the money into the 401k, but you're paying taxes when you take the money out of your 401k. So that's how a traditional, not a Roth, 401k works. So that's if you work for like a private company. If you are a government worker, like a teacher, for instance, you would not have a 401k. You would have a 403b. So these are pretty similar to 401ks. Few differences. I'm only going to get into one here. Um, the government rarely, if ever, matches contributions. So if I put, as a teacher, because I'm a teacher, if I put money into my 403b, the state of Delaware would not be matching my contributions. It still has some of those tax advantages that I mentioned above, but otherwise it works like a 401k. So these are two of the more commonplace work-related retirement accounts, but both of these are tied to a job. Oh, and if you're wondering why they're so weirdly named, like the numbers and the letters, that comes from the tax code that the IRS has created. So, individual retirement accounts. Those previous ones are related to your job. But what if you're self-employed, or what if you're unemployed? Can you still save for retirement? And the answer is yeah. An individual retirement account is called an IRA, and it's not connected to your work. There are two types of IRAs. There's a traditional IRA, and then there's what's called a Roth IRA. So let's talk about the traditional IRA first. Sorry, these bullets are slightly out of order. Traditional IRA works a lot like a 401k. The dollars come out of your paychecks pre-tax. So you're not paying taxes on those dollars in the year that you earned them. but you do pay taxes on disbursements once you're retired. So that works just like a 401k, only again, it's not tied to any kind of job. It's just an account that you just open up with a bank. A Roth IRA, which is named after Delaware Senator Bill Roth, um, is slightly different. This is what a lot of people are moving to these days. When you put the money into a Roth IRA, you're using post tax dollars. So for me, what that looks like is I get my paycheck, I take money, and then I go put it into this IRA. I've already paid taxes on my paycheck. Whatever money is left in my paycheck, that's the money I'm putting into an IRA. So I've already paid taxes on that money. But here's the thing. You don't pay any taxes on disbursements during your retirement. So that's one of the primary advantages of a Roth IRA. Now, for both traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs, you can only contribute $6,000 per year. In 2019, that was the annual contribution limit. So, what I do personally is I try to max out my IRA because it is tax advantaged. So, I take $6,000, 12 months in a year, divide 6,000 by 12, which means I pay $500 every month into my IRA. That's a good way to make sure that you're taking advantage of that. Um, and that's how much you can put in every year. And that does get raised when you're in your 50s. They're called your catch up years. If you want to contribute more than 6 grand, you can. There's all kinds of rules about this stuff. But if you try to take a disbursement before age 59 and a half, that's what the government has said is like the magic age here, you could pay a 10% penalty. So it is best, absolutely best, not to take a disbursement from your IRA before age 59 and a half. Leave that money in there. There are some special circumstances, of course, where they will let you take money out without a penalty, but if you have the option to, make sure you leave that money in there. The great thing about Roth IRAs especially is your money is growing, as your account gets bigger, as you're getting capital gains and dividends and interest, growing tax-free, right? Because you already paid taxes on the money you put in there. That money is getting more valuable, it's growing, and you're not paying taxes on that growth. That's why a lot of people are moving to Roth IRAs. But regardless of what type of retirement account you use, please be certain to save early and often, right? Get into the habit of saving when you're young. Take advantage of compounding because you can have a lot of money then when you retire. Now, this brings up the question, okay, I could have a lot of money. How much do I need? How much will old me need to get by? And there's a few things you need to think about. There's some factors here, right? First, you need to estimate what age are you going to retire at? When are you going to stop working? That can be a little hard to plan. What if you become disabled before the age that you had targeted, right? You have to try to estimate what age you're going to retire at. You have to also try to estimate your life expectancy. At what age will you die? This is a little bit morbid, but it's important to think about. What age do you expect to live to? And insurance companies can tell you about this stuff. They study it extensively. Medical professionals, can create opinions about this too. Um, and finally, your living expenses. What are your costs? Do you still have a mortgage you have to pay to keep your house? Do you still have car payments? What are your living expenses like, or going to be like, rather, right? So here's a question for you. Is $100,000 enough to have at retirement? Let's say you put $100,000 away throughout your working years, and that's how much you plan to live on in retirement. We're going to say no Social Security, no pension, none of that, just 100 grand of your money. Is that enough? The answer is no. Because if, let's say, you were planning to retire at 65 years old, and you're planning to live until you're 85 years old, that means that you have $100,000 over 20 years, which, if you do the math, comes out to only $5,000 per year, which is much less than most people in the United States currently live on. So that's going to be a very hard retirement for you. Is $1 million enough to have at retirement? The answer to that, well, again, maybe, right? It depends on your situation. Let's say we keep those same constraints as before, retire at 65, plan to live to 85. Well, now you got $1 million over 20 years. That's 50 grand per year, which might be about what you make when you're working. It might be more than you make when you're working. It might be less than you make when you're working. But that's the kind of stuff you have to think about. Now, before you're like, oh my God, how am I ever going to save $1 million? Remember, you don't have to save $1 million to have $1 million, because hopefully your savings are going to grow over time due to the compounding effect, right? So you might just have to save some fraction of a million. And if you're earning interest, your account will hopefully grow to a million. And then you'll have enough to retire on, or more, who knows? The only other X factor you have to watch out for here is something called inflation, which is your money losing value over time. Hopefully your savings will grow at a rate greater than the rate of inflation, which is the rate at which money loses value. But these are the kinds of questions you have to think about, and the earlier you can start thinking about these questions, the better decisions you'll be able to make throughout your working years. Even if you're just in your 20s and you have student debt and you're like just kind of getting by on scraps, you have to think about the long term here. A lot of people don't. How bad is it? Well, this is 2018 information put together by Northwestern Mutual, which is an insurance company. And essentially, the average American adult has $84,821 saved for retirement, which, based on the previous slide, should raise some alarm bells, right? 21% of people have nothing saved for retirement, and 11% of people do not even know how much they have saved for retirement. So clearly, we are not in good shape when it comes to saving for retirement. But if you know earlier, then you can make better decisions moving towards that goal. So hopefully that's been informative. Thank you so much for watching.